Go.
Get ready, get set for the best movie and pop culture talk in the universe. It's The Good Brothers on Mercado Airwaves with your hosts, Alex Mercado and Mike Mercado.
Hello, friends, and welcome into a very special edition of Sports from the Couch, The Good Brothers, Two Nerds of a Feather podcast. It must be a big deal. It must be SummerSlam weekend. Chicago must be the center of the wrestling world if we are doing a Marvel's Avengers, a Justice League-like team-up. Good brother, welcome back to Mercado Airwaves. I'm your host, Mike Mercado, with the one, the only, the good brother himself, Alex Mercado. Alex, how excited are you for a wrestling weekend?
Mike, it is clobbering time if I've ever seen my watch.
That is absolutely right. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. So on this very special edition of all three shows, we have gathered the good brother himself, Alex Mercado. We are going to get his predictions for SummerSlam, for NXT TakeOver 36, and of course, there might be a certain Chicago kid making an appearance, maybe. We're going to get his opinion later on this very video. You'll be seeing my conversation with the fellow nerd, Everett O'Neill. He will be making his prediction for SummerSlam, for NXT TakeOver 36, and of course, his thoughts on Rampage and All Out. Because if you are new to here, welcome in. You are looking at the king of predictions, the champion, the undisputed champion of sports and entertainment predictions here across the Mercado Airwaves network. And I defend my title against these two jabronis. And we start off at SummerSlam. That is correct. The biggest party of the summer is on a Saturday night this year in Las Vegas. Good brother, are you ready?
I'm ready, and I want Everett to listen real close right now because I'm the rated R superstar of this podcast, and he wants a Daniel Bryan his way into my title match. What was supposed to be a one-on-one, now is a triple threat, so I want him to listen real close because I'm coming for him, too, when this is over.
That may be fine. You could come from after I stack you and pin both of you. Let's get this going. Alexa Bliss takes on Eva Marie. Who do you got?
I got Alexa Bliss and some stupid, pointless gimmick that doesn't make sense anymore without the main guy himself. I could care less. This is the only storyline where I can't even mimic myself into caring about. I don't know how you feel about it, but that's how I feel about it.
100%. I love Alexa Bliss. I even like what Eva Marie is doing. I like Dude Drop. So all of them work, right? This should work. It isn't working for me, though. The storyline isn't working for me. I was at the All States when she made her opinion on the Titantron, that appearance, and Bray Wyatt was the only thing that was being cheered. It's not her fault, but that is the truth of the situation. But she will win this matchup. I got Alexa Bliss as well. Good brother. A 3MB reunion. That is right. Drew McIntyre takes on Jinder Mahal. Who do you got?
I mean, this one I can get a little more excited because you and me are both Drew McIntyre marks, and we did actually enjoy Jinder's title reign. We understood it's very old JBL status. You're really supposed to hate this guy, almost to going away heat, but at the same time, you're anticipating him losing that title. In this case, it's the same as Alexa Bliss, where I like the meat. I just don't like the bones of it. I like everything involved in it. I like that they're trying to make these new stars for a different culture. At the same time, I just think they've told such a weird, wonky story that could have been much easier. Well, these guys are in a reunion. These guys have been champions, and they used to be friends. And now it's like a sword and a motorcycle, and it really doesn't make much sense of why they're fighting now.
Yeah, I don't love the story. I get a kick out of Jinder. I think it's interesting to see them do Veer and Shanky as these new big up-and-coming heaters, even though they're making them a little bit more of a comedic act, which is funny that they didn't go the very serious way. Drew McIntyre, I wanted him away from the title picture for just a little bit. I don't know if I wanted him claiming for this sword thing, but as we've seen on social media, they are marketing it. They did make toys out of it, so shout out to Drew. He's going to make some paper off of that. But I think we both agree Drew McIntyre goes ahead and wins at SummerSlam and gets a little bit closer back to the WWE Championship picture. Here's one, a dream match at SummerSlam. Edge, the rated R superstar, takes on the Monday Night Messiah, the King Slayer, the Beast Slayer, Seth Rollins. Who do you got in this very interesting matchup?
This is a tough one because you can see it both ways. I think both guys are in need of a victory. At the same time, neither truly need a victory. So this one's a toss-up. I'm gonna give it to Seth Rollins. I think Seth Rollins definitely pulls away with some real heel heat, and I don't think it hurts Edge to lose to a Seth Rollins if it's being set up as like that next big heel on either brand. Whether we have a draft coming up, I don't know if guys like Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins stay where they're at right now. I think it all depends on Seth Rollins where Becky Lynch ends up turning up. I do believe we get her at SummerSlam. I don't know if she comes out after Bianca or if she comes out after Charlotte, but I'm going to give it to Seth Rollins on this.
You know who hasn't had a big win since his return, really, is Edge. And I think they are still building towards Edge doing something, whether that is the Raw Championship, whether that is the Universal Championship. I'm not 100% sure, but I do think Seth Rollins, what's interesting about Seth Rollins is, yeah, he could be a prime candidate for being switched during the draft. He's also one that doesn't really need victories. I'm interested to see how they continue the story because we know this is going to go to Extreme Rules. So maybe he comes up with an excuse. Is it easier to get a heel to get a rematch than it is a babyface? Not 100% sure, but I think Edge needs a win. I think it's been a while since Edge won. I mean, we saw him get stacked and pinned at WrestleMania, so I think he's kind of due for one. I'm going to go with Edge on this one. So we finally got our first difference, and it's going to be a very fun matchup for not only the fans, not only for wrestling fans, but for us right here, as that is a difference. I'm interested to see how Everett is going to play into this one later on in our recordings. I think this one is a fun one. I think we're going to go the same way. For the United States Championship, Sheamus versus Damien Priest.
I mean, you won't find two bigger marks than two young, strapping Puerto Rican men cheering on a big, older, strapping Puerto Rican man. Damien Priest for the culture represents. He's going to be your new United States champion.
Wepa, Damien Priest. He's also the only one that has a connection to Bad Bunny. So Damien Priest wins the United States Championship. The Smackdown Tag Team Championships. The Usos defend their title against Rey and Dominic Mysterio. Who you got?
I'm going to go Usos still because we're just going to keep this tribal bloodline thing going forward. I do think we leave the night with the Usos and Roman all carrying the blue title still. I also think that we might get our breakup of Rey and Dominic finally tonight. And I think it's probably I know some people aren't interested in seeing them break up. I really am, especially with the history of SummerSlam of Rey and his kid. Of like, that's when we got the infamous Dominic on
a pole match.
Paper on a pole match. Yeah. So I would really like to see him like pull the trigger tonight. And we've been getting little hints at SmackDown, and unlike Raw, SmackDown's one of those shows where it does pay off. Like, they're not idiots. They're not treating the fans like idiots on SmackDown compared to Raw, where everything pays off on SmackDown. Like, nothing is just thrown in to be thrown in. So I do think we're getting little hints at it. I hope tonight we start seeing either the turn or really building to the turn, and we see it at a Survivor Series. Or maybe you can push this to a WrestleMania where we get, Mysterio versus Mysterio.
Yeah, I definitely think it's Mysterio versus Mysterio. I think this is going to line up very much with Rey's current contract, so I think that's what he's kind of aiming for storyline-wise. Yeah, I think the Usos win this one. That story's not ready to be done yet. Who knows if maybe the New Day go from Raw to SmackDown, and then you get that Big E and Kofi and Xavier versus Usos and Roman down the line. That could be something. So I think this is with future plans ahead on both storylines. I think the Usos walk away with the blue tag gold. Speaking of tag gold, how about AJ Styles and Omos versus the RK Bros in Randy Orton and Riddle? Who do you got?
RK Bro is easily the best thing on Monday Night Raw. I don't think it's really close. I think that's the overall positive you hear from pundits in our industry and fans alike, where RK Bro is working. Randy Orton does a great job of just taking random things like this and making them work. Matt Riddle, I think you're one of the biggest Matt Riddle marks, and you have been forever since his UFC days. You turned me into a Matt Riddle fan where, you don't really see it on the surface, but once you see the body of work and the promos, you're like, oh, this kid's a star. I think this is definitely built for them. Take those tag belts, run with them for a little bit. I could see these being one of those moments where they'll take the belts. Obviously, eventually, again, maybe to a WrestleMania or another big pay-per-view, we'll eventually get your Randy Orton and Matt Riddle payoff where Matt Riddle finally goes over on Randy. But for now, I would like to see them win the gold and have a run with it for a little bit until we can get a good heel tag team to go against them.
My hope is that not only they win the titles today, like you are saying, I think they are the best thing on Raw for the most part. I would say I would be really interested to see Riddle turn on Randy Orton. Riddle can play the heel. Riddle can do a lot of the different things that you don't really have to mess with his character. You just tweak it a little bit, and now all of a sudden he's a heel. I'm really interested to see that. I think, you and I both could see it. Anybody who's been watching wrestling long enough, you don't have a storyline this long. You don't have this type of chemistry with Randy Orton unless they think you're going to do something. So sooner rather than later, he's going to get the big belt. And I think this is just leading towards that. So they have to win today. Because in order for this rivalry to continue, you got to add a little bit more meat to it. You got to have one of them turn. And eventually, when this is over, the test, you did your thing, kid. See if you can hang. He passes. And eventually, he gets himself one of those nice heavyweight championship belts, in my opinion. And I think that's why you and I are both going with RK Bro. In another fun marquee rematch, but nonetheless a marquee matchup for the Smackdown Women's Championship, Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks. Who do you got?
I'm going to take Bianca, obviously, because I think we're going to keep pushing her title reign. The question becomes, is Becky showing up on SmackDown or is Becky showing up on Raw? I'd rather see Becky show up and give Bianca a new opponent. I don't know if for Bianca's character can really withstand tweener like Becky Lynch. I think it makes more sense to put her on the Raw against the Charlotte. You go back to that. Well, it's like a Cena Orton. We're like, it's gonna pop a number. Becky Lynch being back in general is gonna pop a number. I'm not sure if that's where you're going, but again, if I know there are certain people that can't be touched, and when it comes to Seth Rollins and Becky, they're gonna be on the same show. They're not traveling to different schedules every kid, and the WWE is gonna make sure they're happy. So I can see it depends when what match goes where of when we get Becky Lynch back, I think.
It's a very good point. It's a compelling point, and there's a lot of dots that you connect that make sense. That's why I'm definitely leaning your way, and we'll know a lot after this. What's interesting about this one is, let's say, and we'll talk about the Raw Women's Championship up next, but what's interesting is where is Becky going to outshine anybody? Again, I was at Allstate, and Rhea Ripley got one of the loudest pops in the entire night. She's a star. Do you want Becky to be going and taking, or at least fighting for that star, for that fire? Do you want her in SmackDown? If you have her in SmackDown, is there any woman on the roster right now on SmackDown, let alone entire WWE, that's going to be able to, carry and hang with Becky when she's rocking and rolling and when she hits her groove? I don't know if Bianca's there. I love Bianca. That's top tier, and we know how great Sasha is. But Bayley's hurt. So it's not as deep when it comes to the top tier merch sellers, main eventers, people that can be main events of WrestleMania. I think she kind of has to go to SmackDown, at least for how the roster is built now. That's why I think Bianca does win this title. She's going to have to find a heel or the ultimate babyface to go against. Maybe like a Toni Storm. Maybe that's kind of what they're building up to next. So I think she's going to... Go ahead.
Or Raquel Gonzalez. I also think between that match on Sunday, the loser of that match is getting moved up, I believe.
So there are some players on that, but Becky's the X factor because we know how untouchable Charlotte is, rightfully so. We know how popular Rhea is, rightfully so. And then we know how great a Bayley and a Sasha and now a Bianca. We know how dependable Carmella is. You have Natalya. There are killers in the women's division. But Becky, she becomes that X factor that changes the entire landscape. So I'm interested to see where she ends up falling in this one. But we both agree Bianca Belair wins this one, and we jump right into it. Who do you got? Nikki, Ash, I'm not going to say ASH, almost a superhero, but I guess I did. Rhea Ripley or Charlotte Flair? Who walks away with the Women's Raw Championship?
This one, I think, is my second toughest to pick because it's all a domino thing. And usually NXT will help. And usually, it depends where there's placement on the card. Because in my opinion, if you have Charlotte win, it's only to do the Becky pop finally. And why would you keep throwing it to that? I also agree with you where I think Rhea, it might be good for her to get that title back. And I get their reasoning. You want to keep Charlotte strong. She can pin Nikki. Let's be honest, as much as we both like Nikki, I don't see her being there for any other reason but to take a pin and to keep the other two strong. So this is tough, but I'm going to go with my earlier bet. Bianca's going to win. I think we'll get a Toni Storm, Raquel Gonzalez push on SmackDown for that heel. I think Seth Rollins is eventually going to lose, and I think he'll win, but I think eventually he leads his way to Monday Night Raw. I think Charlotte wins just to lead to a Becky pump either that night or the very next night on Monday Night Raw.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I can't. It's like John Cena. It's like The Undertaker. There's certain people, Triple H. You can't go wrong with picking them. I understand you going with Charlotte, and we can make the argument why you could go with Ripley. I mean, all these three women are great, and their potential opponents, when done correctly, can be great. I think Nikki wins this one. I think the way they've just been booking it, and the way that they've just teased the little things. They just gave her new merchandise. There is something brewing here. And I also think we can't take for granted that when Vince McMahon says, "Oh, you don't like this? You don't tell me what you like. I tell you what you like." And I think this might be one of those cases where no, you're going to like Nikki. You're going to like when we bring back Becky. And you're going to like what we do with Charlotte. I think that's kind of where they're going with it. So I'm going to go with Nikki in this one. Even though I everything against me says to ever pick against Charlotte, I think otherwise, what was this all about? Mind you, it's WWE, so that's more than a possibility that it could be. Well, what was this all about? But honestly, go ahead, please.
I can see your point there where I could sell it to myself just now. I kind of want to change my thing because what if Becky's a distraction for Charlotte? What if Charlotte does have the win and now Becky comes out and those two are above the title. Those two don't need a title to have one of the best matches or rivalries in the company. So I see your point. I think that's going to be an interesting thing to see how it plays out.
And obviously, if you're new to the Good Brothers Sports from the Couch, Two Nerds of a Feather podcast, when we do our WWE, AEW, New Japan, and NXT predictions for my current championship belts, we get one mulligan, whether it's on the air or off the air. But because we are so close to SummerSlam and to NXT TakeOver 36 and All Out, I think we're going to have to do mulligans on the show. You get your one, good brother. Do you want to use it here? Do you want to take the belt off of Charlotte and move it to Nikki?
No. I'm going to stick with Charlotte because, again, like you said, for the same reason you gave, it's WWE. They love Charlotte.
Fair enough.
I could definitely see them just saying, no, she gets the title back. We did a good pop. They got a good rating. I don't know if they love what Nikki's doing. So either way,
totally fair.
This event will tell you what they really think about Nikki.
No, it's a good point, and we will learn a lot about that, and we will learn a lot about the future. And when I talk about future, I'm not just talking about Survivor Series. I'm talking about Royal Rumble and WrestleMania because we have our two co-main events. We have both championship belts on the line. For Raw, for the WWE Championship, Bobby Lashley defends his title against Goldberg and his son, who was 13 just a few years ago, who is now 27. Who do you got, good brother?
Bobby Lashley. It's definitely the same setup as a Brock Lesnar at Mania, where they're going to book Goldberg strong, just to have Bobby Lashley come out and be like, oh, he really is that good. The only people that have really beaten Goldberg are monsters, like Braun Strowman and Drew McIntyre and Brock Lesnar, and now this. So, I think you keep him strong. I think you put Bobby Lashley on that monster status. And again, you have two options. I think it makes more sense because I think the Roman storyline eventually will go to a Rock or someone else compared to this, where I would like to see maybe Big E start making his way to Monday Night Raw with the New Day. And now you have that.
I'll be 100% honest with you. Goldberg scares me, man. Goldberg always scares me. He beat Bray Wyatt. They put the title on him for WrestleMania. This is not out of the realm of possibility. They let him beat Brock at Survivor Series. We are talking about a dude that they love to book a certain way. Now, mind you, this is the important thing. He only has reportedly 2 dates on his contract every year. He's already had one, so this will be number 2. Do you put title on him and you try to get some more contract dates? I don't know. This is a packed stadium in Las Vegas. They could be going for the pop. I'm going with Bobby Lashley, but I want it to be known here on the show that you should be afraid of Goldberg winning this title. But I think we're both going with Bobby Lashley.
Yeah, that's the point, I think. The point is what you just said is you should be worried. You should second guess it, even though deep down you're like, no, they're going to keep it on Bobby. It makes more sense.
I 100% agree. But what makes sense more than anything is what's going to main event in the new stadium in Vegas, the home of the Las Vegas Raiders. John Cena versus Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship. Who do you got?
I'm gonna take Roman, and I think we get another major comeback tonight, or not tonight, but at SummerSlam.
And who do you is it the one and the only from Suplex City?
No, I could see it being maybe a Brock. I also have a theory that maybe it's Daniel Bryan coming back.
We will get to that. Save that thought. You are amazing, and you are a mind reader. Please save that thought. I will be going with Roman Reigns as well. I think this has been fun. I think this is a great time for John Cena. Unfortunately, Suicide Squad did not do great in the box office. That is a conversation that the good brother and I will have down the road when it comes to the aftermath of the streaming and movie theater debacle that's been going on. But we know that he's on tour. He's got a few dates after this. It's been fun. This is the moment for Roman to step up. It's not John's time to win 17. He will win 17. That will happen. Vince will give him that belt. But not at Vegas. Not this coming Saturday night. Not against the Tribal Chief. We are both going with Roman Reigns. And I think it is going to be a wonderful matchup. Good brother, we have made our predictions for SummerSlam 2021. We will have them on social media at Good Brothers Pod, at Couch Sports Talk, and of course at Mercado Airwaves. Here are our tiebreakers. We won't go match by match detail. I just want to get your thoughts on NXT recently, its programming, and then we'll run down the predictions for each match. What have you liked? What haven't you liked? Your thoughts on NXT?
Man, NXT is like, I would say it's almost on Monday Night Raw level where like it's hard to get invested, especially when you know a reboot's coming. It's almost like the show weeks before a draft where you're like, none of this really matters. It's just to get us the next week. That's how I feel about NXT is like we're going to get a makeover and then we still have to go through all the taped episodes. So it's really hard to get into. I still think they'll have a really bomb, almost end of an era pay-per-view. But at the same time, in your head, you're like, well, man, now we're probably going to lose Karrion Kross. And Adam Cole is probably going to be dipping sooner, maybe leading up to the next level. So, like, the NXT we knew and loved the last few years into the pandemic era, into the Tuesday Night War, is taking an end. So, in one end, that's exciting. On the other end, you know, coming after this, it's going to be a little bit of a drought.
I 100% agree with you. I couldn't have said it any better myself. It is the end of an era. Whether it's as drastic of a change as reports are, I don't know. You know how I feel about wrestling journalism. So we'll wait to see when it actually happens, what's put into fruition. But we are in a new day of NXT. This will be the end of an era one way or another. And I think more than anything, it's one last hurrah. We can enjoy it. But to say that it was a wonderful ride, and I think the peak of it was NXT War Games Chicago. You and I were there. We will never forget that as wrestling fans. So let's go ahead and enjoy what may be the last one or one of many more. Either way, we will enjoy NXT 36 on a Sunday after SummerSlam. Good brother, let's make these picks. Walter versus Ilya Dragunov for the NXT United Kingdom Championship.
Ilya Dragunov, is that how you say it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he'll take the title because I think Walter gets moved to regular NXT, if not the main roster.
Absolutely.
Because he's definitely the definition of what they want to do. So I could see them being like, okay, who's going to take that title from Samoa Joe? Walter seems pretty good. Seems like a very reliable, like, yeah, that would be the guy to beat Samoa Joe.
Yep, he's a killer. He could go to any territory and he could speak English. We know that everybody loves him. Yeah, that's the guy. But Ilya is a wonderful, wonderful champion in the UK, and he's out of Vince McMahon's eyes. I think he wins the title, and it's going to be a fabulous match. How about for the $1 Million Championship and Ted DiBiase as a butler, L.A. Knight, yeah, versus Cameron Grimes. Who do you got?
Cameron Grimes, LA Knight is getting moved up.
100% agree. Cameron Grimes wins the $1 Million Championship. I love LA Knight. It's a funny story that we have there. So we're going to have two new champions. Speaking of championships, Raquel Gonzalez takes on Dakota Kai. Who do you got?
This one's tough because I think Raquel Gonzalez is doing all those dark match stuff. I think she's like Karrion Kross where they're like, no, we need her too. And I think she makes the most sense to go to a SmackDown and be a nice heel. Like, I think Toni Storm will be the first one to go against Bianca Belair. Like, really, like, kind of take that next rivalry. But I think Raquel Gonzalez is the next reliable. You're like, okay, she'll be a champion probably within the year. They're going to put her on SmackDown or Raw, get some squashes. Maybe, like, she's definitely the heel the woman division needs. So I could see them saying, you know what, Dakota's been due for this. She's earned it. It makes sense. Let's let her run with it, be the babyface champion for a second until we pull a heel on NXT and destroy her. So I'm going to say Dakota wins because, again, everyone who loses, I think, is getting moved up. They're going to start cleaning house.
See, I think while you could say Dakota could win, I think Dakota wins too. Here's the thing, though. I don't think just because she wins, Raquel's going to go up automatically. I think this can be a few pay-per-view thing, and Dakota keeps getting over on her because there is a chance they both get moved up. We saw Dakota get a dark match. This is a very intriguing one. The thing that I have hesitation for picking Raquel is if she wins, then what? Who is the other? Who's next? Who are they going to bring up? There's no one. So I think we both agree Dakota Kai has to win this. Just even if it's just to continue the story, that's how you have to go down this direction.
Exactly.
Now, this is a fun one. Not the main event, but a fun one. Karrion Kross versus Samoa Joe. Who do you got?
Samoa Joe.
Totally agree. And
Come on, young champ.
Yeah. He's the best. He's the best. Shout out to King Shark Samoa Joe. And in the main event, in a 3 stages of hell match, Kyle O'Reilly takes on Adam Cole.
You know, before I say that, what I'm most upset about is my favorite storyline in NXT won't be on the pay-per-view. At least we don't know for sure. It'll be on Tuesday, which is Hit Row versus Escobar.
Mm-hmm.
That's my favorite thing maybe in WWE right now. Like, it's definitely one of my top 3. I love all that stuff. The little brawl they did. Homegirl got the bat on them. They're throwing each other. Like, I love that stuff. Hit Row is like my favorite. And I'm like, God, don't pull a sanity. Like, when you move them up, just do the same thing and let them be Hit Row because they're dope. And like, it talks to a modern audience. But beside that, it's O'Reilly. Like, he's finally going to get his big moment, his shining moment, sitting on that cage, hands raised, like big victory. It's going to be great. And then Adam Cole, you either know A, he's moving up or he's moving out.
100% agree. Hopefully Kylo can do something with it and, make a nice run because I don't think he's going to go main roster. And hopefully the rumors are true. Adam Cole gets paid and gets to be a featured star on one of the 2 shows. So, yeah, we are both going with Kyle winning this one. And it's going to be, really fast. It's going to be a fun pay-per-view, but you are 100% right. And I have always been a mark for King Cuerno and Killshot. So the fact that you have Isaiah Swerve Scott versus, the awesome Hispanic team of Escobar, Joaquin, and all them, like, I think this is great to see them go from Lucha Underground to basically doing the same thing in WWE NXT parking lots. So shout out to all the real ones who watch Lucha Underground. Good, brother. Before I let you go, I just want to read this tweet to you. I'm betting that excitement from the most anticipated announcement in AEW history at hashtag AEW Rampage, the first dance, will build up through All Out on pay-per-view. We'll make new fans, plus welcome dormant wrestling household worldwide back into the fold. A new era in AEW begins tonight on TNT. That's from Tony Khan. Good, brother. What happens Friday night in our home city of Chicago at the United Center, where the Blackhawks won 3 Stanley Cups, where the Bulls won 3 NBA championships, where Sting came down from the rafters, where SummerSlam saw Bret Hart versus Owen Hart? What happens this Friday night on AEW's
Two things
Rampage?
are going to happen. Either CM Punk shows up and we're going to lead to a big match, not turn a match, or my bigger fear is like Tony Khan is very known for hyping up announcements that he's hyped about that maybe don't pan out. My biggest fear is that it's Daniel Bryan and we're just leading to like, oh, yeah, Daniel Bryan's there. That's cool. And like leading to like Daniel Bryan versus Kenny Omega, like at All Out, which on paper sounds like a better match than CM Punk versus Kenny Omega. That's the problem with Punk is I'm like, well, who do I want his first opponent to really be? Compared to a Daniel Bryan, where I'm like, it kind of fits right into Kenny Omega's thing. That's the hard part. I mean, it has to be Punk. I feel like if it's not Punk, this would be one of the biggest letdowns in like wrestling. Like it's one of those where it's like, man, Tony Khan, you broke all ill, like you broke any goodwill you have with the fans. Even if it is a Daniel Bryan, you're in Chicago. The hype, the messages, like it has to be Punk. And if it's not Punk, like you lose all goodwill. Even if it is Daniel Bryan, even if it is, what if it's Braun Strowman? What if Braun Strowman shows up tonight? What if it's something like that where you're like, man, like, I thought it was, yeah. But, I mean, here's fingers crossed it's CM Punk. My biggest thing, I love CM Punk. Chicago made kid, obviously. We're going to mark out for CM Punk. What is he going to do as a wrestler? That's where you're like, okay, beside the initial pop on a Friday night show that a lot of people are going to watch after this big pop happens. Like, you're just not going to pull a big rating on a Friday night. Beside maybe tonight. I don't know, man.
I think it could go so many ways. I think it's going to be CM Punk. I don't know if he's going to be in the arena. I don't know if it's going to be like the Jericho thing where it's just on the Titantron. I don't know if it's going to be a Bryan Danielson, a.k.a. Daniel Bryan, a.k.a. the American Dragon. I don't know. I do know that they better deliver. And other than those two, it's going to be a letdown. And Daniel Bryan might be the only person that can turn that crowd around, you know, when it comes to it not being Punk.
So.
You're right. You could be 100% right.
If you're in Chicago, if this was New York, it'd be different. And let's say you're in New York and Braun Strowman should be like, okay, whatever. But you're in Chicago, you laid the crumbs, you're doing all the little hints and Easter eggs. It's one of those where, like, there's only one answer. And if you don't give us that one answer, man, people are going to be upset.
I agree with you. I do think it's Punk. It could easily be Bryan. I don't know why you would, why you wouldn't promote either. I don't know why either would make an appearance without there being, I guess you don't need any real buzz because there's already natural buzz out there, but can you imagine even more that would get for the people who aren't connected? You're in New York the following week, so it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out there. I don't know. As I let you go, the last thing, is there any chance he's in either one of these guys are in WWE? You mentioned Daniel Bryan could definitely be one.
My other theory is that what if Cena wins and who comes out to get a bigger pop than a Cena pop if it's not CM Punk? And we're going to do one more round. Or if it's like, you know what I mean? Like, I could see in the Ultimate Universe where, like, what if Punk's on WWE and this is his AEW being Mercs?
I don't know. That's what makes this all fascinating. That's why we're all getting played. We're all being worked right now. I just don't know what the work is. And I guess that's not for us to know. It's for us to finally see it all happen. But I think that's what's been the most fascinating is we've all been worked. And whether it's the companies themselves who are working themselves, the boys, the girls working themselves, or just the community, we all fell into the trap, the beautiful trap of wrestling and being worked. Good brother, thank you so much for making time for us on this very special, this new version of the Good Brothers. We will be talking to the great audience of our show about how we are tweaking this thing moving forward, post-pandemia, and of course, moving into 2022. Good brother, shout out to you. Any final thoughts for your people heading into an amazing wrestling weekend? Chicago, a mainstay this Friday, Vegas this weekend, and of course, in just a few weeks, Rampage, Dynamite, and AEW All Out come back home to Chicago. Any final thoughts, my guy?
No, it's been fun. It's going to be a great weekend of wrestling. And again, Everett, when you hear this, I'm coming for you. Once we finish up Mike and I reclaim my title, I'm giving you the first shot at the big boy.
For the one, the only, the good brother himself, Alex Mercado.
It's clobbering time.
I'm the good brother, Mike Mercado. We will see you next time here on Sports from the Couch on the Mercado Airwaves Network. I'm Mike Mercado. Hi, Colts.
Thanks for joining us here on The Good Brothers, here on Mercado Airwaves.